All right, we want to welcome each one who's come to our study this morning. We have some of our members sick, we have some that are out on vacation, but we're thankful for you who've been able to be here and join us via the satellite. And today we are studying the last lesson of chapter 13, and we're on Monday's lesson, page 68. I have to apologize. I do not like reading glasses, but I had surgery on my nose this past week, and I caught some slight congestion cold on top of it, and so I just cannot wear a contact this morning. So forgive me for putting glasses on and all. Okay, under Monday's lesson on page 68, the topic is a beautiful Christian quality. And what is this Christian quality that we're going to be talking about this morning? So what Christian characteristics is emphasized by the Apostle Paul? And he does it, first of all, in Titus 1:7, and then we're going to go to Hebrews. So someone will read as soon as you get it. Titus 1, verses 7 to 8.
For a bishop must be blameless as a steward of God, not self-willed, not soon angry, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre. In verse 8, but a lover of hospitality, a lover of good men, sober, just, holy, temperate.
Okay, the one that we want to focus on from our lesson, what we're going to see, is here in verse 8, the first part, but a lover of hospitality. And also Paul brings this out in Hebrews chapter 13, verses 1 and 2. So let's read that, and then we'll bring everything hopefully together.
Let brotherly love continue. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares.
Okay, so here it's brought out from Paul, that hospitality is a feature not only to the bishops to be a bishop, but I think, of God's people in general. We should look for those opportunities to be hospitable. And, it's nice maybe to have a background growing up, as I've heard tales of my family. Both my grandparents on my mother's side and my father's side were of this quality of nature of hospitality. Years ago, when they had camp meetings, they didn't put preachers up in 5-star motels or have the cooks come in from Loma Linda to cook their food and things like this. Years ago, they went into the homes of the church members. And my grandparents on my father's side were ones who I heard some very, forthright names that they kept in their home. One of them, some people may know or heard of, is Carlisle B. Haynes, and he wrote a book, God Sent a Man, on the life of Joseph, which is possibly one of the most fantastic books I've ever read on the life of Joseph. And he had a number of books that were maybe 50 pages, little pamphlets, missionary handout books. And not too terribly long ago, I was going through some of the books that came to me since my parents are deceased, and I found out that I have some of those original copies that Carlisle B. Haynes personally signed to my grandmother with a note in there to her. So, hospitality is something that my grandparents had, and I saw it in my own home. My parents, because of their home life, they constantly, showed hospitality. And that is one of the things that my wife and I, we enjoy, showing this. And it's a lot deeper than just being a bishop to show hospitality. I'm working on a message, and I don't know when I'm going to get it together, but the Lord has placed upon my heart to talk about the 144,000. And one of the characteristics of the 144,000 in my studies happens to be hospitality. And so if you want to be among the 144,000, that is one of your that's one of the characteristics you would have. Yes, Steve.
I was thinking maybe he singled out bishops here to put the perspective that it's not just lay people.
No.
Because if he singles them out, then he's saying to them it's their responsibility as well and not to be served. Because the position now is that these bishops think they're to be served,
right,
and not to serve, and they're servants. And so for him to say to be hospitable yourselves, not just someone waiting on you, I think it's a good scripture to point out that what we see happening in this present time doesn't fit this, because they're wanting to be served and not served. And so, I think this is why he called them out.
Well, and you just jarred a thought in my mind. Too many people of authority have a tendency do as I say, not as I do. And so this is something that should have been done, you're right, in their life, but also as a bishop or as a teacher, shouldn't you be teaching by examples, to your congregation and to your people, this is the way of Christ in all things, that should be brought out there. It's a very good thought. Someone will read that first paragraph, a lover of hospitality.
A lover of hospitality is among the specifications given by the Holy Spirit as marking one who is to bear responsibility in the church. And to the whole church is given the injunction, use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man hath received the gift, even so minister the same one to another, as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. These admonitions have been strangely neglected. Even among those who profess to be Christians, true hospitality is little exercised. Among our own people, the opportunity of showing hospitality is not regarded as it should be, as a privilege and blessing. There is altogether too little sociability, too little of a disposition to make room for two or three more at the family board without embarrassment or parade. God is displeased when the selfish interest so often manifested for me and my family. When the spirit of hospitality dies, the heart becomes palsied with selfishness.
Okay, and that word palsy means paralyzed. Okay, again, it's brought out. You don't know in Hebrews here when you might be entertaining angels to be hospitable. Now, the thing about it is, if you're looking for a pat in the back for being hospitable, don't. You're going about it with the wrong attitude. And over the years, we have seen people. We've been wanting to be hospitable to people, and we've been taken advantage of, but not really me or my wife. I think they took advantage of the Lord because the Lord, we receive our blessings from Him. And, just show you how some things can go sometime. We had somebody who was without a home. They had a home. They were home sitters for a lady who was a nurse. She was a traveler. And she only needed a home maybe a week or two every 3 or 4 months until she got a new assignment. But she liked the fact that she had somebody there in her home to care for her. Well, she decided that she was going to stop traveling and got a full-time job in the area of her home. And she told this lady and her husband, I'm sorry, but, I can't, you can't, I'm going to be home permanently now. You need to find another place to stay. Well, we got a phone call from the lady, and she told us what the situation was, and she said, we have a place to go to Monday, but we need a place to stay Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. Could we stay at your home? Why, most certainly. We have an extra bedroom. There's no problem, for that person, for them to come and stay with us. Well, the husband, he really liked our home, and he liked the fact that he didn't have to do anything around the house. They didn't have to buy groceries or anything. Well, we put up with it for 6 months. and so after 6 months, we said, enough is enough. We think you folks need now to find a home of your own. And so, but those are experiences, you learn in life, and I'm grateful. Don't get me wrong. It's one of those things, and I'm not any the worse off for it. And but again, you never know why those things happen. But to be hospitable is part of the character of a good person. No. And so anyhow, those things happen in life. I remember, again, like I say, maybe as they say, a chip off the old block. My father, he was an oil burner mechanic, and so I don't know. He stopped in town for something. I don't know, maybe lunch, and here was this couple that had no place to live. And it was wintertime in Pennsylvania, and they had family, but they were up in the coal regions of Pennsylvania, which was about 100 miles or so from where we lived, and they had no place to live, and no one was willing to take them in. And the thing is, I look back upon it, I wasn't even a Christian at that time. We didn't go to church. My parents didn't, but yet my father, heard the sorrow, these people, this man, this woman had no place to live, and it's cold winter. He brings them home. And then that Sunday, my uncle, who was actually instrumental in bringing me to the Lord, him and my father drove them way on to the relatives that they had about 100 miles away to stay. But that was the kind of, I guess I was raised in that kind of atmosphere. There's a need, you can do something about it, you do it. And isn't that what the Lord says? He says, to some, he said, depart from me, you workers of iniquities, for I don't know you. I was hungry, and you didn't feed me. I was naked, you didn't clothe me. I was in prison, you didn't come to you. And the people say, well, when to to those who he says, blessed, come, welcomes into the kingdom of heaven. They say, well, when do we ever see you like that? And the Lord's going to say, when you've done it on the least of these, you've done it unto me. And so, hospitality is a good quality to have, but understand you might be taking, to your thinking, advantage of, but maybe the Lord is testing your character and those things in those particular moments in life. I'd like for us to turn to another verse that's in the New Testament. It's Luke, the chapter 14. I'd like for someone to read these couple of verses. Luke chapter 14, and I'd like for someone to read verses 12, 13, and 14.
Okay, I can do that. Then said he also to him that bade him, when thou makest a dinner or a supper, call not thy friends, or thy brethren, neither thy kinsmen, nor thy rich neighbors, lest they also bid thee again, and a recompense is made thee. But when thou makest a feast, call the poor, the maimed, the lame, and thou shalt be blessed, for they cannot recompense thee, for thou shalt be recompensed at the resurrection of the just.
Okay, this is an interesting verse here, because over the years, my wife and I have taken a lot of flack. One of my favorite holidays is one that we just passed through, Thanksgiving. I think of all holidays, and I'm glad that that's one day that's set aside for people, should be able to give thanks to God. And so a number of years ago, after reading this, I was condemned. And so my wife and I said, we're not going to have Thanksgiving anymore for our family, but we're going to reach out to those perhaps who are by themselves. And that is going to be our day of joy and of thanksgiving that we can reach out. Now it says the Maine. It didn't say the Maine, but I invite the Maine anyhow to come to Thanksgiving.
I do appreciate it.
and so anyhow,
I'm going to take a pencil and cross off the ED.
and anyhow, it's interesting that my family, for a while condemned me, and I said, well, why don't you just read Luke chapter 14 there and see what it says, about it, and so this is a blessing to us, to be able to do this in many ways. It's not only the friendship that we have from those who were able to come, but doesn't the Lord say here? Let me put the glass back on. And thou shalt be blessed, for they cannot recompense. Well, they can recompense. So I'm not saying that. For they shall be recompensed as the resurrection of the just. And so, in heaven, is a special blessing. And so I hope that for those who come, they realize it's a blessing to us to have them. And this year there's a gentleman that joins us each week here with our study. I won't bring out his name because of embarrassment, but we were so blessed this year that he came to our Thanksgiving dinner, and because he's by himself, and when I say he's by himself, just very few people that ever even visit him. But anyhow, it's a blessing. It's a blessing to us, and I know that we live in a world that people feel as though they're worthless. No one cares. We're almost shoulder to shoulder with people, almost 8 billion in this world, and yet the loneliness that's out there is just amazing. So hospitality, reaching out, doing little things like this, brings joy to our own souls and to our own lives, as well as those who we can reach out to. So let's realize that, as the Bible says, we might be entertaining an angel someday and not aware of it. Okay. Anybody else have a thought or question on that? If not, let's go part B. Name 2 Old Testament examples of Christian hospitality. And this is kind of unique of what happened to Abraham here. So let's go to Genesis chapter 18. And it's a long read here, verses 1 through 8. So whoever would like to, go ahead and read that. Genesis 18, 1 through 8.
And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Myrah, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day.
Excuse me 1 second. The him here is Abraham, for those who, may not be know who he says appeared on him. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself toward the ground. And he said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on, for therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, So do, and thou, as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened unto the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran into the herd, and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it unto the young man, and he hastened to dress it. And he took butter and milk, and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood before them under the tree, and they did eat.
Okay, so we find here, with Abraham, strangers, he sees three strangers, and he jumps into action to realize they possibly may have traveled a long ways, they're thirsty, and so he does everything, he can to make them comfortable. And we realize that one of those three strangers was the Lord, and two of them were angels that came that day. Okay, 19 verses 1 through 3. Kathy, you have that one?
I do. And there came two angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat.
Okay, so for Lot, did it pay him to do, to be hospitable with these two men? Because, fire and brimstone was to come down upon that city that night. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting here how that he had to press them or encourage them or, to do what he's asked. And I think, it's it may have a little bit to do with sincerity on their part, to see, sincerity of Lot. But, Lot made a mistake in life, when him and Abraham, their servants, were at odds, their herds were too large to be together again. And I think, Lot made a big mistake when Abraham said to him, well, if you go to the left, I'll go to the right, or if you go to the right, I'll go to the left. And so Abraham gave Lot the choice, whereas Lot should have said, Uncle Abraham, you choose. You are the one who should have the choice, not me. And Lot chose wrong. He went the wrong direction, for which we found out, which we know from the Bible, turned out to be a very bad choice and very bad decision. Well, Abraham made a good choice in entertaining the Lord, and Lot made a good choice here in entertaining the angels. But let's read, someone read those paragraphs underneath that. The Bible lays much stress. Yeah, that can?
Yeah. The Bible lays much stress upon the practice of hospitality. Not only does it enjoy hospitality as a duty, but it represents many beautiful pictures of the exercise of this grace and the blessing which it brings. Foremost among these is the experience of Abraham. Oh, you want me to read it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
These acts of courtesy God thought of sufficient importance to record in His Word, and more than 1,000 years later, they were referred to by an inspired apostle. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. The privilege granted Abraham and Lot is not denied to us. By showing hospitality, God's children, we too may receive His angels into our dwellings. Even in our day, angels in human form enter the homes of men and are entertained by them. And Christians who live in the light of God's countenance are always accompanied by unseen angels, and these holy beings leave behind them a blessing in our homes.
Okay, I highlighted that last sentence there that you read, Ken. And Christians who live in the light of God's countenance are always accompanied by unseen angels. And these holy beings leave behind them a blessing in our homes. And as I stressed from time to time, several years ago, it dawned on me in my prayer life to thank God for the work of the heavenly host. I think they are very much unappreciated by most people who live on planet Earth. The work that the heavenly angels do. And one of the things that I'm sure of is I know I'm sitting here right now that each one of us has a guardian angel. The experiences that have happened over my lifetime, looking back, I can see, the ministration of angels. I think, I often say a good story is worth telling more than once. I had a number of years ago, in my early 20s, I worked commercial construction, and we were 50 feet off the ground on just the steel work was up on this building, and we're actually putting a perimeter band around the whole building because it's a flat roof to put the flashing on. And we had a young man who was just too slap happy, go easy, didn't think of the danger where we're at, and he stepped on a board, and we had 2x12s on these bar joists to stand on and to work from. And he stepped on this one short, we're at the corner, so we had to have some short planking there. And he stepped on this board and it slid on this metal. And he knew that he was headed down 50 feet. But the thing about it was there was something very close to him he felt he could grab onto, me. And just as I heard this commotion behind me, it didn't happen in front of me, but behind me, I heard a voice say, "Get down." And immediately I dropped down, and there was this I-beam, it was a big web on it. And just as I grabbed a hold of that web to secure myself, his arms were around my back and my waist. And there he is dangling from me as I'm hanging on to the steel. So, to think that there are not guardian angels, how many have had just near-death experiences on the highway? You have one here not too long ago. Not to think that there aren't angels there to protect and care for us. One of these days I'll try to remember to bring in that photograph of my lawnmower when I almost went over an 8-foot embankment. And again, there's no rhyme or reason for that thing to stop. It stopped as as quickly as it did. It was a dead stop. Nothing underneath of it. The braking system on those things don't work. Don't tell me that there aren't guardian angels. And so every morning, in my prayer, I ask the Lord and I ask my Father, please thank the heavenly host for all that they do for all humanity, because I don't think they're appreciated enough. But also, particularly, the angels that you have sent to care, to guide, direct my life, and my guardian angel until I can get to heaven and thank them personally. I ask daily, I forgot to thank them. Now, here is another blessing that we have for those angels. I've often thought that life is a two-way street, because otherwise life is just selfish if it's all about you. So one of the things that I have given thought to is that, most of the angels of heaven cannot be worshiping with God today because they're here on earth caring for God's creatures. Most of them aren't appreciative of their work and what they do. But, I'm thankful that my guardian angel gets to come to church every Sabbath to worship with God as I worship, as I desire to worship my Father and with one another too. And so, have you ever stopped to think about the fact that you come to church? Your angel has a chance to come to church also, your guardian angel, to be with you. And so is that not a part of hospitality that we can show, towards them by, and then the other thing we got to remember is there's some places that angels won't go. Somebody to walk into a bar room just to go in there, the angels wouldn't feel at home right there. They have to stay on the outside. Who knows? Angels are in the inside, but I think the angels of God stay on the outside. And other places, which we call amusement, I don't know. If the angels, we even feel comfortable. So we're standing alone. If we go to these places, we're standing alone without protection, without the help of God. And so we've got to keep that in mind. Somebody else has a thought along those lines. Anybody?
Well, we also have recording angels too. They may go into a bad place to see what you're going to do in there, but
Well, they can see from heaven and record
they can see through the walls.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so every idle word, we have to give an account of.
True.
So the angels are very busy on our behalf, and somehow to me, I don't know. The older I guess I get, the less things of this earth. Well, I love that song. Things of this earth will grow strangely dim in the glory of His grace. That
Sure.
to me, the thing about heaven is to be able to be around God's throne and to worship and to be there and to see what to thank the angels. I like I said, I just want to do that more than I want to build a new house in heaven. I want to build too many houses in this earth. So that's striking to me. But again, just stop and think that you have an opportunity by being in church each Sabbath or being with us via the internet for your guardian angel to be there to worship God. He doesn't have to worry about you being somewhere else because you're spending that time worshiping God. Okay, now we're going to talk about next one. Marriage is honorable. Marriage anymore is about the least honorable thing I think in this world that's out there. We know some of the statistics in the United States anyhow. There's only about 40% of the people that think that marriage is even necessary. So 60% do not even look at marriage as a necessity. Those who get married, what reasons are they getting married for, and what pretenses are they living under? Which marriages can God honor, and which ones can God bless? There's very, very few. And to think that there's going to be a big turnaround, I don't see it happening because this world is getting worse and worse, going farther and farther into sin, like it was in the days of Noah. And those words of Jesus are very important. And we're told there in Genesis that their thoughts of mankind was evil continually. And so we don't see this, marriage becoming honorable anymore. And, like I said, but marriage is something that I think, has not been taught properly through the centuries now. I mean, I don't know. I just, I look at some other countries where the parents choose the mates. But, we say, is that unusual? No, it's not biblically unusual because Abraham sent his servant to get a wife for Isaac.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, are we taught, like everything that we do, are we being led by God? And that is the most important factor here, I think, that we need to look at and teach. Are we being led by God step by step? And it's not happening. We know that. But anyhow, it was honorable. God had the two things that Adam brought with him after the fall. Marriage was one, and the Sabbath was the other, and the devil evidently must hate both institutions. So let's look here at our verses from Genesis. When did God establish the institution of marriage? And we find that in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26 through 28. Barbara, I know you don't have your glasses. Can you read that?
Yeah, I'll try. And God said, let us make man in the image after our likeness, and set them, let them have dominion over the fish and the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Yes, yes.
Okay, you already 27, 28.
Okay, I'll help you out. So God created man in his own image, in the image of God, created he, him, male and female. He then, and God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth.
Okay, so God, He created male and female, and then He had something else more in mind here. It's not just their creation, but chapter 2, verse 18. What does it say here? Moses kind of going back now, reiterating something.
Want to try that one, Bart?
Yeah. And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him and help meet for him.
Okay, so God said, that He would make a helper for Adam. Kath or Diane, do you want to read 21 through 24?
And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh there instead thereof, and the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bone, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh.
Okay, well, there's a lot of good counsel in here that's not taken seriously today. I love this part here. It says, last verse that Diane read, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And so when they get married, get out of the house.
Yes, because there is the mother-in-law.
There's a mother-in-law, yeah. And there's a lot of the problems, that can be caused there. So get out, But it's interesting as you look at chapter 5 of Genesis, verse 2. Speaking of this, male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name what? Adam. So in the beginning, before sin, they were called Adam, or they were human. They were both called Adam. So after sin, then it became Eve, Adam and Eve.
Yeah, that's right.
So again, there's many things, aspects, the fairness of God. And I love the analogy. I've heard it. You've heard it possibly many times yourself. How that God took from Adam a rib. He didn't take a bone higher or lower than that, but to be by his side, the ribs, And so he did not originally intend, that man would dominate woman or woman dominate man. But then after sin, then God did say that the woman needed to be subject unto her husband. And then there's a lot of things that, we look at today that I think they could run smoother, but it has to be a Christian home in a Christian way to run smoother. And again, to realize that, God took that rib and Adam said, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. And to realize, this oneness, this, all that's gone, all that's missing. It seems like from married life today. And so we don't have this joint unity that God desired to have for peace and harmony in the homes. And do we have peace and harmony in most homes? No, we do not. We have arguments, we have bickering, we have just one thing after another. I mean, the amount of murders that you hear of husbands, killing wives and committing suicide or vice versa, it's just horrible. It's deplorable. But it's something that Satan has taken aim at, because he knows, that if you have a genuine couple who were equally yoked together, with Christ, and subscribing, to what God has ordained and instructed, they could turn the world upside down for the Lord. And so the devil, is taking specific aim at that, because that destroys, by not having that, the whole family then is destroyed, by not having that understanding. And then, of course, we know that the other thing was the Sabbath that was given, and so therefore people have little thought in God. If the Sabbath was always kept, there'd be no such thing as an evolutionary theory, because people would understand, who created everything. And so Satan has done an excellent job at destroying this institution.
Man is the one that changed the Sabbath.
Yes, he is. Yeah, through the workings of the devil. Through the workings of the devil, has brought about those things. The first verse here says, God celebrated the first marriage. Thus the institution has been for its originator, the creator of the universe. Marriage is honorable. It was one of the first gifts of God to man, and it is one of the two institutions that after the fall, Adam brought with him beyond the gates to Eden. When the divine principles are recognized and obeyed in this relation, marriage is a blessing. And that's just what I was saying. It guards the purity and happiness of the race. It provides for man's social needs. It elevates the physical, the intellectual, and the moral nature. And so everything is blessed and receives a blessing from this proper understanding. He who gave Eve to Adam as a helpmate performed his first miracle at a marriage festival. In the festival hall, where friends and kindred rejoiced together, Christ began his public ministry. Thus, he sanctioned marriage, recognizing it as an institution that he himself had established. Christ honored the marriage relationship by making it also a symbol of the union between him and his redeemed ones. He himself is the bridegroom. The bride is the church, of whom, as his chosen ones, he says, "Thou art all fair, my love, there is no spot in thee," which comes from the Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 7. Christ's first miracle was wrought on the occasion of the marriage. Thus he announced to the world that marriage, when kept pure and undefiled, is a sacred institution. We want to look at this here a little bit. It's interesting, how brought out here. Christ did begin his ministry at a marriage, and his first miracle was performed at the marriage ceremony, at that feast. But the irony of it all was his mother. His mother actually pushed him into this situation, and Jesus' love and honor for his mother, he didn't bring embarrassment to her. He did what he could, for the marriage feast, for his mother, and also, as we know, put his blessing upon this occasion, because this is where he started his ministry, and this was one of his first miracles. We're going to get into this a little bit deeper here, but let's look at what happened. When questioned regarding, I'm sorry, we didn't read John 2, did we?
No.
That's the one I was looking at. Okay, I'm sorry. John chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. John chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. Somebody want to read that?
And the third day after marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there, and both Jesus was called, and his disciples to the marriage. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus said unto him, They have no wine. And Jesus answered and said unto her, Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. His mother said unto the servants, Whatsoever he hath said unto you, do it.
You see, I see a pushy mother there. Because Jesus said, my hour has not yet come for me to start my ministry. Oh, well, whatever he tells you to do, you do it. It was kind of like I'm going to ignore your statement on that because I know who you are. I know what you can do, and I want you to show forth, I mean, as a proud mother would, and sometimes does do those things. And so Jesus was kind of like pushed into this this miracle, and because, like I say, he didn't want to embarrass his mother, but yet it turned out that he was a blessing, to marriage, to show his acknowledgement of that, the fact that his first miracle was in a marriage, and so on and so forth. But things that we do at times we think are going to work out the best for us. Well, after a time, his mother perhaps maybe thought maybe that wasn't wise for me to push Jesus into doing that, because we realized later on there became a problem. Here Jesus was getting a reputation, and not necessarily a good one. He was getting a bad reputation for what he was doing, and he became an embarrassment to the family. Let's look at Matthew chapter 12, and we can get an insight here as to what I'm talking about. Matthew chapter 12, and we want to read verses 46 through 50.
While he yet talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brethren stood without, desiring to speak with him. Then one said unto him, Behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without, desiring to speak with thee. But he answered and said unto him that told him, Who is my mother, and who are my brethren? And he stretched forth his hand toward his disciples, and said, Behold, my mother and my brethren. For whosoever shall do the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same is my brother and sister and mother.
Okay, so it's interesting here to look at the fact that they wouldn't even come in the room. Mary and Jesus' brothers, half brothers, step brothers, whatever it may be, stood outside, and they wanted to talk to him. And basically, what they were saying is, don't you realize the embarrassment of the things that you're doing is bringing embarrassment here to the family? And Jesus' answer was to when he told him, your mother, who is my mother? I'm going to tell you who they are. Those who follow me. They're my brother, they're my mother, they're my sister, those who follow me. And so to me, I just thought it was amusing here how Mary pushed Jesus to get started with his ministry when he said, my hour has not yet come, but not to show embarrassment to his mother. He did, he did what she asked, he knew he could do what she requested. But now all of a sudden he's into his ministry, and she's saying, come here, son, I need to talk to you because things aren't turning out the way I thought they should be, for you, and things are being said aren't being said nice, and Jesus didn't go out. He didn't go out. But then, as we look back on the life of Jesus at the age of 12, when he went to the temple, his mother scolded him there. Look what you've done to your father and me. We've searched, and she knew the care that the angel told her and Joseph were to have over him, not to take their eyes off of him. 3 days they couldn't find him, and when they did, then all of a sudden she wants to scold him. But Jesus said something very wonderful, which I wish I would have known and realized much younger in my own life when I was raising my own children, particularly as they became teenagers. When Jesus looked at Mary and says, I must now be about my Father's business. What he was saying is, you don't have that responsibility anymore for me. My Father in heaven now is the one who I'm going to need to answer to in all things. Not that he was being disrespectful, not at all. But I wish, I would have known this from my own teenagers to say, you think you're getting away with something? Mm-mm. You got a heavenly Father you now answer to. And his yeas and nays are a lot more important than my yeas and nays. And his and being obedient to him is more important than being obedient to me, because the most you may get is a whooping or something denied for you for disobeying me. but ultimately hellfire comes from our Father in heaven, if we want to constantly disobey Him. And so, it's a shame that, we're too late smart sometimes along these things.
I want to go back to the marriage being honorable. I was thinking it is still honorable in the sight of people that tend to not want it, but everybody's trying to get in it. It's a group of people a demographic of people who want it really bad, that don't have a right to it, but they want it. So that means that the institution of marriage must still be honorable if this group of people want it, that don't have a right to it. And then there's other people that choose to say, I'm not going to legalize it. I'm not going to go for a minister. And I'm just going to, but you're going to live in the institution of marriage, even though you don't want to say you're married. But they still want, because if you didn't think the institution was good, you would not want to live this way. Just go your way and I go my way. But they don't. They want to cohabitate. They want to live in that space of marriage without it being called marriage. So it's something about it that the devil has caused all these groups that still want to be a part of this institution, that trying to do it a different way, but they're still doing it. And some, like I said, don't even have a right to it, but they want it so bad.
Well, and again, they're not going by the scriptures, because God says in the beginning He created male and female, and He united male and female together. And so again, it once more, it's what I said earlier. It is one of the biggest attacks of Satan that he has is on the honorability of marriage. And you're right. I mean, everybody wants the honors of marriage, but they don't want to do what marriage requires. It's kind of like everybody would like to go to heaven. They don't want to go to hell, but they don't want to live a Christian life either. And so the devil has done a great job. And my mother said, you're going to give the devil his dues. And he has done a great job on this area here of deception of marriage and what it is, what it should be, but yet what he has made it into. It's been every good and honorable thing that God has done or has, Satan has attacked it and destroyed it the best he could, because that's how he works. Okay, let's see if we can finish this page here. When questioned regarding divorce, okay, we're going from marriage now to divorce. What did Jesus say to the Pharisees in Matthew chapter 19, verses 1 through 8? Again, we have a lot of long readings here.
Okay, I can read it.
Okay.
Verse 8. Right?
Yeah, 1 through 8.
And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these things, he departed from Galilee and came into the coast of Judea beyond Jordan. And great multitudes followed him, and he healed them. The Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him, and saying unto him, Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? And he answered and said unto them, Have ye not heard that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not man put asunder. And they say unto him, Why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement, and to put her away? And he said unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffer you to put away your wives. But from the beginning it was not so.
Okay.
Mary and I were married 57 years.
57.
Amen.
I had no desire to put her away. That's for sure.
Well, it's interesting what they say up here in verse 3. Here's what they say. Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? Now, basically, my understanding is over the years by reading and studying and hearing sermons and stuff on this, that if a woman, burned the supper, that was a cause. If she spent money the wrong way, that was a cause to get rid of her. If she didn't do what the husband asked her to do that day, that was enough cause to anything. It didn't matter what it was, and Jesus, and they're saying this for any cause. Yeah, they could, because Moses agreed with this. He said it was okay, and Jesus said, it was because of the hardness of your heart, and I do feel sorry for a lot of people that live, in a marriage institution that's not a good one. And we know it's out there by the millions, and it's very, very sad. Yes, sir.
Well, it says for any cause, and we could think about the things we can find out that they were saying any cause.
Yeah.
And so Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, let me stop this so that abuse won't happen. Because if you're going to get mad at her, what are you going to do to her if you don't like something she's doing, if she's burning the toast, if she's spending money? You're not going to try to get along with her. You're not going to try to. So as a result, Moses said, he's saying to me, he allowed it because of the hardness of your heart. Because your heart is so hard against the one that you're supposed to love that you would mistreat them as a result of this.
Yes. Yeah, you're 100% right. And again, it comes down to not understanding, God's principle of marriage and what it was to be. Does it not say they are to become one?
I think the reason why a lot of divorces happen is because the man wants somebody else.
Well,
of his wife.
Yeah, but now that number has flipped. It used it used to be 60% of the men, but now 60% of the wives. So the number is flipped. Well,
we got a good point there, because marriage now are like, well, you got a job, you got your own income and whatnot, and you got your own friends you entertain with, and I want to go and do these things, right? So there's a lot of separation that's involved.
And if your heart becomes hard against your spouse that you don't love anymore, like your own flesh, that becomes a problem. So you look at that person that you took to love and cherish till death do you part, and now you don't like them, now you don't love them, now you don't, treating each other, whichever way it works on both sides, but you're treating each other like strangers and like enemies instead. So that's a problem, that you're not loving one another as Christ loved the church. You're not loving one another like you're supposed to. So,
well, we're out of time. Actually, we might have a couple of minutes. Yeah, we'll pick up on that next week. We'll finish this topic next week. Okay, Ken, do you want to see this quickly?
Father, we're thankful that we've had many experiences in life, marriage being one of them, absolutely marvelous. And we know that the world today they don't seem to care about what is right. They don't make a distinction between this is wrong or that's proper, what to do. It's quite sad, but it's wonderful to sit down here and go through a lesson. We think the same because we're Christ's children. And so we thank you, Lord, for what we have.
Each one who's joined us.
Oh, we're going to shut this thing.
Is Teresa take care of it from there? Is Teresa take care of it?
Well, push it for quite a while, I guess. What did you push? Did you push right there?
Yeah. I ain't got no fingers.
Well,